Okay, let's do a changelog video and also discuss some cards that I haven't been thinking of correctly. I had to review my thinking, change the way I looked at them. So first up on the changelog is Rafiq of the Many. Rafiq is my Enchantress Ultron deck. So the basic idea is I get Rafiq in play, I give him some badass enchantment like Eldrazi Conscription, Colossification, even just a unquestioned authority, so he has protection from creatures. And then I smash for commander damage. That is the primary way he's supposed to win, and it works pretty good, but it still needed something. It still wasn't perfectly tuned, wasn't running on all cylinders. So let's put Rafiq there so we can look at him as we do this. Stand up, Rafiq. Rafiq's been drinking today. Stand up. There you go. Barely see him on camera. There we go. Okay. First out is Changelog Castle. I realized that I wanted more lands to produce mana of his colors, not just one color. I just don't use a Changelog Castle. Preventing 2 damage to him is never relevant. I can't remember if I've ever done it. I can't remember the last time in any deck I have activated any of these Kamigawa lands except Manamo, School of the Unseen, to untap a legendary permanent. That one is good. That one's really nice. And that one is staying in Rafiq, because it untaps her Sanctum. So this is coming out, and to replace it, I'm putting in Opal Palace, which kind of makes sense. I mean, Rafiq is going to get killed. For some reason, people find a 3/3 that becomes a 4/4 double striker when he attacks as a commander kind of threatening, especially when he has qualification and he's a 24/24 double striking. Maybe a bit of rank around him, so he has trample too. Makes people nervous for some reason. Anyway, so I'm putting in Opal Palace. 1 tap, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. If you spend it to cast your commander, it comes into play with a number of additional counters equal to number of times it's been cast from the command zone this game. So this prevents 2 damage to him. This makes him bigger, and it comes into play untapped. Of course, if I don't spend 1 to filter it, I only get 1 colorless out of it. But in any case, I see it as a low risk, medium reward, easy inclusion. Next on the cutting block is Skull of Orm. I've never used it in this deck. It just kind of stayed in there. I never rethought it. I never questioned it. But I started looking through for something to take out for yet another land, and I thought, okay, I've got Nomad Mythmaker, and as an instant I can activate him. I believe it's 1 white mana. Tap him, take any enchantment out of your graveyard, any aura out of your graveyard, and slap it on a creature you control. So I've got that. I also have Hull of Heliod's Generosity, which is basically the Vora Stronghold for enchantments. You spend 1 and a white, tap it, put an enchantment from graveyard on top of your library. So Skull of Orm, the high activation cost, has kind of always put me off. I've never needed it, never wanted it, so it's coming out. In its place is Path of Ancestry. This is the card that I was looking at wrong. I was looking at it as a tribal card. So it comes complete tapped. Add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. When it's spent to cast a creature that shares a creature type with your commander, scry 1. So that's the way I've been thinking about it. That's what I've been locking onto, is that scry 1 if you cast a creature that shares a type with your commander. Well, Rafiq's deck doesn't have that many creatures to begin with, and there's only 2 or 3 that are humans. There are no other knights, so I'm not going to get the scry. But what I am going to get, and the way I should have been looking at this is basically a command tower that comes into play tapped. That's the way I should have been looking at it. It's not a purely tribal card. It's just command tower with comes to play tap. So I'm thinking about that differently now. Excuse me. And while I was at it, I decided to review some other cards. So Simic Guildmage, the reason he was in here is not to move plus and plus encounters around. Yeah, that could be relevant in some decks. It could be relevant against some opponents, but it's such a corner case, I completely ignored that. The reason I had it is so if I have a creature out and I have an enchantress and I need to get the draw engine started by casting an enchantment to draw a card because an enchantress is in play, I can just slap an aura onto any creature and then later on I can move it to Rafiq. In practice, I don't do that. In practice, I don't need to do that. Rafiq's in the command zone. I can just wait to cast him, or I can put an aura on another creature and start smashing with it. So Simic Guildmage is coming out. What's going in is Azorius Guildmage. So white or blue hybrid, 2/2 Vidalcan Wizard, no creature types shared with Rafiq, and so 2 and a white tap target creature. That can be good. 2 and blue, counter target activated ability. That can be really good, especially because a lot of my opponents are starting to play more Spellskites. That's all I need is to try to put Angelic Destiny on Rafiq, and the Spellskite guy to say, hey, I'll pay 2 life to have you enchant my Spellskite with that enchantment that gives it +4/+4 flying and vigilance. I like that, I'll do that. Well, that would suck for me, so I can counter that activation of the Spellskite. There's also all sorts of other random activated abilities that I just don't want to go off. So I think she's going to be better in Rafiq. Anyway, those are the changes to Rafiq. Now let's look at the more involved changes. To Karrthus, Tyrant of Jund. Karrthus, as some of you probably know, is my decoy commander. The deck is tribal elves. The deck has, I think I'm up to 38 elves again. And 1 dragon at the top. Karrthus is in here at the top of the deck, not in the deck. He's the commander. In order to give the elves air support and to prevent a viable fallback method of winning via commander damage. So 3 hits and somebody's dead because of commander damage. I gain control of dragons, which has worked out a couple of times. Not very often, but a couple times, and it's always funny when it does. But the game plan, the real game plan, is Elf Ball. Right, so I realized I don't need Bojuka Bog in here. I have Tormod's Crypt, and I have Glissa the Trader. I believe that's what she's called. Green, black. For, I believe she's a 3/3 first strike death toucher, and when a creature dies you can return an artifact from your graveyard to your hand, something like that. Anyway, so I've got Tormod's Crypt. I don't really need the Bog. It comes into play tapped. I don't want comes into play tapped lands in this deck, so I'm taking it out. In its place I'm putting in Wheel of Fortune. You might think, well, if you had a Wheel of Fortune, why the hell didn't you have it in the deck in the first place? What's wrong with you? I didn't have Wheel of Fortune because I was relying on all my elf draw spells, which work really good unless let's say I'm only drawing 2 cards a turn. I've got Beast Whisperer and Elvish, I'll just say Vanquisher's Banner because that's an easier one to remember. The other one is new and I forget the name sometimes. So let's say I have Beast Whisperer and Vanquisher's Banner. I cast an elf, I draw 2 cards. Cast an elf, draw 2 cards. And this is a lot easier with a Lurin in play. And then I hit a land pocket. I cast an elf and I draw 2 lands. And I'm stuck. And I don't really have enough to attack with. So I'm kind of twisting in the wind. Well, this, I can discard whatever isn't helping me, all the lands that are stuck in my hand, to draw 7 cards, should get an elf, and then keep the draw engine going. So Wheel of Fortune is going in. Plus, Winds of Change is in this deck. And Winds of Change is 1 red. All players count the number of cards in their hand, shuffle them into the library, and draw that many cards. Winds of Change is very good at the beginning of the game. If I'm in the middle of the game and I have 10 lands and I need more elves, if I shuffle those 10 lands in, all I'm doing is I'm increasing the saturation of lands in the deck and making it quite likely with Winds of Change that I would just draw a grip of lands and not that many elves. So Wheel of Fortune says just dump all those lands so you don't shuffle them back in and just draw fresh cards. The other card I was thinking about wrong for Karrthus is Patriarch's Bidding. Okay, it's a tribal elf deck. Every black tribal elf, well, tribal deck, elf, spirit, demon, vampire, you should have a Patriarch's Bidding, right? I mean, it's an auto-include, isn't it? Why wouldn't you have it? For 5 mana, you choose a creature type and you bring all those creatures from your graveyard back to the battlefield. Yeah, your opponents do it too, but unless they're playing a tribal deck, you're going to come out a lot better than they are. Well, there's been a lot of times I've been looking at this card in my hand and, okay, let's say I put the elves back. Somebody has cast Wrath of God, somebody has cast Damnation, Supreme Verdict, Blasphemous Act, or just pinged all my small creatures because I didn't have enough to keep them alive. I didn't have enough to buff them. Okay, on my turn I cast Patriarch's Bidding. I just get those creatures back. I'm in the same situation. Nothing has changed. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I really don't want it. I want those cards back in my hand. Is there any way of getting the dead creatures just back in my hand en masse? Well, there is. Death Denied. So 2 and a black, instant, return X target creature cards from graveyard to your hand, which is exactly what I want. I don't want to just put the same creatures back. I want to draw those cards back to my hand so I can start playing them again with my draw effects. Let me give you an example. So I've got this prepared. So let's say this is my board state. So let's say I've got, I'll move you over here, Karrthus. Let's see if I can get all this on camera. Oh, here it is, Leaf-Crowned Visionary. That's the card I was just trying to think of. So let's say this is my board state. I have Elvish Archdruid, I have Birchlore Rangers, I have Sylvan Ranger, Elvish Harbinger, Beast Whisperer, and Leaf-Crowned Visionary, and 5 lands. So let's say all the lands are tapped because I just cast, for example, the Elvish Harbinger, and I didn't hit any elves. I'm stuck. I can't keep this going. And somebody's going to wipe the board. Somebody cast Damnation. In response to the Damnation, I tap Harbinger for black. I tap the Birchlore Rangers and the Sylvan Ranger for black. Birchlore Rangers, of course, is 1 mana. Tap 2 untapped Elvish you control, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So she taps for 1 mana of any color, tap for black, tap those 2 for black, tap Beast Whisperer and Leaf-Crowned Visionary for black, and then tap Elvish Archdruid. This is assuming, of course, that he did not have Summoning Sickness. If he did, then I'm going to get just 1 creature back, which isn't very efficient. Anyway, so tap him, and I get 6 mana. So they all die. So I've got 6 green and 2 black floating. What to say, Wrath of God. The Wrath of God resolves. All creatures are dead. I've got this mana floating. So after the stack is empty, after the stack is clear, I cast Death Denied for that 2 black and 6 green to get all the creatures back to my hand. So during my turn, so I go, let's put this here because I like it when it goes from black to green like that. So I draw for my turn. Bowmaster. First I need to get down the Beast Whisperer, so I get him back down. And then I can start with the draw engine. And let's do this differently. Green, red, black for Beast Whisperer. Tap 1 green for the Birchlow Rangers. Play the creature, draw a card. Dictate of Erebos. Okay, so this is just kind of a simulation, but you can see how I'm able to recover and get the draw engine going again because I have Death Denied over Patriarch's Bidding. In that instance, if I had Patriarch's Bidding, all these creatures would have come back into play. I wouldn't be casting them, so I wouldn't get the draw triggers. And my next draw was Dictate of Erebos, which is not an elf, so I don't get the draw engine going again. In this instance, I still have elves in my hand that I can cast out to start drawing more cards. So for example, the next 3 would be nothing that I can cast. So this illustrates how I can hit these pockets where I don't have an elf. This would have been the next 6. So even if I cast my hand for all these elves, well, her, when I recast her, I would search in the library for an elf card, reveal it, shuffle, and put that card on top. So she would guarantee one of these 6 would be a land. Anyway, that's the new thinking I have, and that's why I'm using this. It's not even a foil, I just happen to have one in my collection of junk cards. You know, thinking, there must have been a card. I remember reading a card like that, and sure enough I found it. So anyway, those are the changes I'm making right now to Rafiq and Karrthus Titan of Jund. Let me know what you think. Tell me what other cards that you have that you thought of wrong for years. I thought of Old Palace wrong for a long time. Thought it was purely tribal. No, Path of Ancestry. Thought of Path of Ancestry is tribal. Now, now I think I'm going to get a bunch more because, like I said a few times, it's really just a command tower that comes into play tapped. That's the way I need to think about it.